You're listening to the Productive Therapist Podcast, the world's greatest and most brilliant resource for busy therapists who'd rather be laying on a beach in Hawaii. Every week we share helpful tips on where to put what, how to do this, that and the other, and the best way to get your ducks in a row. And now here's your host, licensed therapist, head nerd, and productivity Yoda, Uriah Guilford.
Hi there, welcome to the Productive Therapist Podcast. I am super excited to be talking to my good friend Maureen Werrbach from the Group Practice Exchange. And the Group Practice Exchange, if you haven't heard of it, it grew out of her own experience in not only starting her first private practice, but growing it into a successful multi-location group practice. She spent countless hours researching how to start a private practice, the legal and procedural steps and everything else, and then many more hours learning how to grow it into a group, again, trying to figure out the appropriate steps. She remembers wishing there was a place that she could go or a book that she could read that would explain not only the steps it would take to launch a group practice, but also discussing topics that relate to group practice ownership. A degree in the social service field just doesn't offer any training on the business side of running a group practice. So Maureen learned through trial and error what works and what doesn't in running a counseling group practice. She enjoys helping others reach their full potential and feel confident in running their business. Please enjoy my conversation with Maureen Werrbach. Hi, Maureen. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi. It's nice to see you again.
Yes, it's great to be talking to you. I'm super thrilled, as always. This is actually the first time that you've been on the Productive Therapist Podcast in a proper interview. You did an episode for me, 10 Questions with Maureen Werrbach.
Yep.
That was a good one.
Yeah, it's been a while, I feel like.
That was 2020, so there you go.
Well, there you go. And 2020, I know is only like 3 years ago, but it's really like 8 years ago.
It feels like a decade emotionally.
Yes, exactly.
One of the highlights for me this year was going to your event and meeting you in person for the first time, which is kind of insane to think about.
I remember when I saw you, it was like so nonchalant. I was like, hey. And then you're like, it's nice to meet you in person for the first time. And I was like, what? I didn't even realize because I've talked to you so much that we actually have never met in person.
I mean,
it just felt like we had.
It was definitely 2017 or 2018. So yeah, let's call it 4 years, 4 or 5 years.
It's a long time.
That was really cool. Yeah. Well, we're going to get into some fun topics, some things where you and I definitely have overlap in terms of what we like to think about and talk about, and certainly what the Productive Therapist Podcast listeners like to hear about. But I wanted to ask you a fun question first, and I know you won't mind this one. What is left or what is next on your bucket travel list?
Bali.
Ooh.
I turned 40 next year, and that's where I want to go. I was supposed to go there. I had it all, like my trip planned and everything paid for, and it was supposed to be for June of the year COVID hit, and so I had to cancel it all. So I figured that's what I'm going to do for my 40th.
I love it. And what's most attractive or interesting about Bali?
I want to go somewhere that is known for its mindfulness, its peacefulness. I tend to be someone that feels like I need to explore everything. So vacations when I go out of the country end up being really tiring because I need to explore all the things. And although I did have a pretty thorough list of things I wanted to do in Bali, I feel like it'll have this air of peacefulness to it. So at least that's my hope.
Yeah, that's great. I put together recently a list of all the events that I could find that therapists were putting on for other therapists in 2023. And there's quite a few. And one of them was a trip, sort of a mindfulness retreat, spiritual retreat for therapists to Bali. And I was looking at the pictures and I was like, oh my gosh, it really does look amazing.
Yeah, I have a friend who lived there for a little bit and she has nothing but amazing things to say about it.
Yeah, I love it. That's cool. So one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you that is because if a therapist starts a group practice and intentionally scales it, grows it, and builds a team, and then delegates a significant amount, that creates the possibility for them to have a bunch more time freedom and also, fortunately, more money to do fun things with said time, right? So that's why I'm excited to talk about this, because at the end of the day, I really am interested in lifestyle design and like how good can I make my life while also doing good in the world and, taking care of my team. It's a triple win, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that feels taboo, like owning a group practice and having time freedom. I know is something that a lot of therapists feel guilt about. So I appreciate that that's something that you focus on. because it does not need to be this taboo thing that if you have time and freedom because you're not working, but you're still making money, that's not a bad thing, I appreciate that you
Couldn't
tap on
agree
this.
more. Yeah,
Mm.
definitely. So the question I want to ask you, one of two questions on this topic is, in your experience, what are the biggest challenges or mistakes that practice owners make when they're intentionally trying to scale and grow? Maybe they want to get over $1 million, whatever their income goal is. What do you see people doing that is problematic?
One thing is scaling too quickly,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get to the end point and not, enjoying the journey. And when practices or any business really scales too quickly, they run the risk of creating potential problems, especially financial problems, not being prepared for financially for the size that they're growing into, but also not just having the infrastructure and systems in place to support that quick growth. I always say that most of our procedures that we have in our practices are kind of like living documents or living procedures that change as we grow, they evolve as our business gets bigger. And when we scale too quickly, we don't have the time to nurture those systems changes and updates. And it ends up causing issues for the practice in terms of successful scalability. We might be large with a bunch of people, but does that mean it's actually successful financially?
Right.
Probably not. And also, it creates a potential culture issue for staff who feel like things are just changing way too much. Staff like stability. It doesn't mean that we can't grow, but a lot of practices, and I'm sure you've had this experience, when you grow and people who've been there when you were smaller, they tend to feel anxious or have concerns about that new growth. And so when there's quick growth, there tends to be a lot of turnover, and that's really costly for the business. So I'd say that is one, and it ties in with, I kind of mentioned this, but the second thing is just not having the right systems in place it's almost like you'll have to build systems and procedures retroactively to catch up with that growth. And so it's almost in response to versus a proactive, intentional, thought out procedure or process in the business.
That makes a lot of sense. Would you say a group practice with 5 clinicians versus 20 versus 50 versus 100 are probably very different organizations?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
No matter how much we want to say, I know I went through this for a long time, being like, when I was a smaller practice, I loved this family feel. I'm air quoting, well, not really air quoting, but family feel. And I remember when we were probably at around 20 staff, I still wanted this atmosphere of family. And although, we're really large now and we have amazing culture, it is just different, and our staff experience my practice differently now than they did when it was 5 of us. It just is, whether we like it or not. So it's about embracing that change and not viewing it as bad. I know a lot of people talk like being corporate is bad, and also lumping together that if your practice is large, it's automatically corporate or corporate-y. And I think there's a way to sort of balance all of that. And yes, the feel for staff will probably be more businessy when it's larger, because we put more systems in place and metrics and all of that to see, where things are falling short. But we can also have the opportunity to still create those close-knit personal interactions, even when we're large.
It just looks different. Yeah.
It just looks different. Yeah.
Yeah. Quick question on your point number 1, which was a mistake can be scaling too quickly. And some entrepreneurial therapists, group practice owners, like I can name a bunch of people I'm not going to name. I'm thinking about a bunch of people. They move very fast and they're like getting new properties, hiring, and they are operating at a high level, moving fast. But that works for them. And then there's people like me. I tend to grow really slowly, methodically, intentionally, sometimes too slow, to be honest. So how does the group practice owner kind of figure out what is the ideal pace for them, if that's possible?
I think it's possible. Part of it has to do with our risk level. And I think to some degree, all of us business owners are risk positive because we've started businesses. That it takes risk all in and of itself. But I think there are definitely people who have the supports to allow them to grow quickly. And it doesn't mean it looks great. Again, I don't think that there are many businesses at all who are infrastructurally successful and financially successful and workplace culture successful if they're growing really quickly. It's probably an anomaly if you are. One of those is going to be, at least one of those is going to be, that ball is going to be dropped. So I think you can do it. I just think that when you're starting a business and if you grow quickly, you haven't had the time. What we want out of our practices in theory when we first start might not be where it goes once we really sit in that business ownership role. We grow as leaders, we become more comfortable with leading with time, and our vision and what we really want out of the business might shift a little bit once we truly understand what it feels like to own a business. And so scaling so quickly, I think, doesn't give you that opportunity. But yes, there are plenty of people who can scale quickly and luckily maybe don't have any big financial things come up where they've been, kind of pushed up against the struggle or the negatives of scaling quickly.
Right. Anytime I talk to a therapist with a group practice who's grown to a significant size without really a team that is efficient and working well, they're without a doubt, they're always stressed and overwhelmed and kind of like at the end of their rope, which is not.
And I was going to say, you haven't had all of the experiences of the struggle of group practice ownership in a 1-year period. If you've gone from 0 to 30 people, it's like you're going to have, we all go through the same experiences of bad hires, of negative Google reviews, of culture issues. Like there's so many things. All of us experience it at one point or another. But if you scale quickly, you're now at 30 people, let's say in a year. You haven't even had time to process and live through some of these struggles, and they're going to be kind of hauled at you all at once. And it, like you said, they're going to be stressed, overwhelmed, and overworked.
Those steps are required learning, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think they make us stronger business owners.
Yeah.
And prepare us for the next stage of growth. The more problems that have happened in my business, staff issues or unique situations where we've had to work with our attorneys or whatnot, those have made me, at the end of the day, when they're done, more confident for growth because I have now just put another unique experience under my belt that I feel like if this happens again, I can handle it.
So true. Yeah, I don't think you're doing this now, but if you want to do this with the Exchange, which anybody listening who has a group practice should sign up and become a member of the Exchange, which is the community for group practice owners that's pretty much the best out there. But I think you could have a system where people earn badges and maybe they're physical, and then they could put them somewhere and like fired a friend, payroll tax audit.
Oh my gosh. To that point, I've been doing it for about a week now. I'm just so slow at it, but I'm building a bingo card of group practice ownership and all of it is mainly like the hard things. So I wanted to somehow put that out there and be like, anyone who gets a bingo means they've dealt with a lot of things.
And you win a spa day or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I love it. Okay. So hypothetically, no, I'm not even saying hypothetically. Can you answer this question for me?
Okay.
So my group practice is 10 therapists and we've got a good team. There's some improvements that can be made, of course. I would like to grow it and I would like it to be more profitable and I would like it to require less time of me if that's possible. Because I don't do much, but, so if you were coaching me, let's say, and I said, Maureen, maybe not in 12 months, but in some time period, I want to double the size of my group practice. I want to get to 20 clinicians. I want to actually make it more profitable and I want to be less involved. What steps would you advise me to take?
I would say I would start with creating an accountability chart. And maybe it is that you're accountable to a lot of those things leadership wise. I think you've read the book Traction, EOS.
Twice.
Gina Wickman. But I think that is a great foundation, not only for, business owners to see what things are they truly accountable for. Because I think we often, and you being kind of the delegation master here, probably would agree with me that a lot of people think they're delegating when they're truly still like the decision maker on those things. And so it's still taking up mental time, mental energy, physical time of the business owner. And to truly delegate means that you're giving out the ownership of the results of the things that someone else is taking over, so that if there's something wrong with it, they're creatively coming up with ideas on how to fix it and not having to come back to you like it's truly being done outside of your vision, right? That's true delegation. And I think creating a true, instead of like a roles and responsibilities organizational chart, like an accountabilities chart, will help you see how many things are you still actually accountable for, so that you can start to either hire with that in mind. You might notice that you need someone who you're in charge of leading the clinical side of things, right? If you have clinicians, that obviously means it's always going to take up time to be in charge of clinical. And so maybe you don't have someone on staff that could lead in the clinical sense. So that means that's something that you would have to start looking for in terms of hiring. And we've hired outside for some leadership positions, and we've done it internally if we have that. So, and I think that just takes a long time. So getting to the point of knowing who's accountable for things related to sales and marketing and the operations and finance and the vision work, which, obviously would be you. And then someone who can actually hold all those people accountable, like an integrator or whatever. I think that's going to set you up for success to be able to hire. So like, as an example, we do this whole thing and I have an onboarding coordinator. She's in leadership. She does all the recruiting, all the onboarding, and she has quarterly and yearly goals that she's accountable for when it comes to growth. And we don't have a number like hire 10 more people this year, because you have to think about people leaving. And if you hire 10 and 5 leave, you haven't really grown by 10, you've grown by 5. And so she has her own metrics and accountabilities to be proactive around people who are leaving, and also growing the business from a adding clinicians perspective. And that's something that then you can do when you have these accountabilities, is then put someone in charge so that you're not spending more time, who can make sure to bring in the right people that fit your practice and set those goals up so that you get those extra 10 people.
That's really helpful. And I do need to do that. The accountability chart, setting it up properly, like the book Traction details. We've actually been working on that with the Productive Therapist leadership team. And it's really, really helpful. It seems so simple and straightforward, but when you actually break it down into the appropriate roles and what are they responsible for, and then, like you said, realizing, having an honest moment with yourself of, oh shoot, I'm actually still doing too much, right? Yeah, that would be really good for me. The two things that are most challenging for me to delegate and outsource are related to marketing and like technology, because I'm always still the person that does most of those things. But I will say that with some of your support, actually, I did promote an executive director, clinical supervisor, promoted to executive director. And It's been 3 months since that took place. And it's actually going really, really well.
That's so good.
Yeah.
I think the clinical leader is such an important one. Obviously, I get that most people are going to say, that doesn't seem like new news, but it almost more than we think it will help. If it's, like everyone knows, if I have a clinical director or a supervisor who can help with the clinical stuff, that would give me so much time, but it actually does so much more than that. If they know what they're actually accountable for, because it's more than just supervising or making sure that people are reaching their clinical metrics. It can be another sounding board when it comes to diversifying services, and whether or not the clinicians you have on your team are people who can do those diversified services for you, So
yeah,
I think you'll really enjoy long-term having that person, and it'll take a lot out of your hands.
So much of it is about the right person, though, because
Yeah.
Shauna fills that role, and she's amazing. She's like a super networker, and
Yeah.
actually really enjoys that a lot more than I do. So that's a wonderful thing. But
That's awesome.
I think as we go from 10 to 15, hopefully to 20 clinicians, we do need more and more structure and clear, like you were saying, clear accountability roles and the scorecards or the metrics. Like, what are you responsible
Yeah.
for? Like down to like something that's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's not subjective, right? It's
Yeah.
very objective. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's not always easy for us to do as therapists because we're like, how does it feel? You're like,
Yeah,
did you meet the
exactly.
goal? Yeah.
I know a lot of people who shift over to EOS have a hard time as
Mm,
therapists because
right.
it is so rigid in some ways. But if everyone can acknowledge that and accept it and still get on board, there's so much growth that can happen in the business, but also people feel more successful because it's so objective. They know when they're doing the right work.
Definitely. Yeah. And
Mhm.
everybody wants that. I used
Yeah.
to think in the early days of my group practice that, I don't want to be a manager. I don't want to like really oversee anybody. And I just want to hire people who are grown adults who are good at their job and then just do
Mhm.
the work. And I
Same.
didn't give them feedback. I didn't give them guidance. I just said, here's an office. Good luck.
Yep. Well,
And
you
then,
think that everyone is just intrinsically motivated to do
right,
things.
right,
Mhm.
right. And you kind of assume that therapists should have good boundaries and know what to do, but that's not always the
Mhm.
case.
No.
Um, and then I realized at some point through getting some consultation that I was actually doing them a disservice by not giving them feedback and helping them grow
Mhm.
in that role. So many things I've learned over 7 years.
Yeah.
And I've also realized that I don't love being a manager. Like
Same.
I love much more the creative side of things, the visionary side of things, building stuff as you do, I think.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that's what I
And
should be
so
doing.
yes, and I have a great integrator who loves holding people accountable, and she has this knack for doing it from such a place of care and like love that people embrace feedback from her. Whereas with me, I'm just so literal that it wouldn't come off that way. People would be afraid, or they would
Right.
feel just like they're disappointing me, even though they aren't, because I am open to failure and people making mistakes, and I don't think that people get things right the first time around, and that's okay. I don't either. But Dana, who's my executive director and integrator, EOS terminology, she can have conversations with anyone, hard conversations, and they feel like she really cares about me
Hmm.
and my success, which is hard to find, but
It's a
super
unique
important.
skill set. It
It
really
is.
is. It really is. And somebody
Mhm.
can fill that role and sort of go through the motions and say the right things, but if
Mhm.
there's just an art to it, there
Yeah,
is. There really
there
is.
is.
Yeah. Cool. Well, that's so helpful. I mean, we could talk for days about this stuff, but I guess I do want to ask you before we wrap up, like, how do you see things changing over the next 5 to 10 years in our industry? You're one person that I listen to and follow in terms of this because I'm not a great prognosticator, but
Yeah.
also Ken Clark and some other folks too. Because obviously, like the plates, the tectonic plates underneath our industry are shifting. Some people
Yeah.
are scared, some people are not. I don't know. What would you say? What's your advice? What are you seeing?
Oh my gosh.
I know it's a huge question. Sorry.
There's so much. That's like a whole
Yeah,
episode in and of
I
itself.
know.
Like really quick overview, and I guess anyone who's listening who hasn't been doing this research might be alarmed or confused. You can Google half of the things I'm going to say and find some literature on it. So do that. I think there's going to be a shift when it comes to insurance reimbursements. One, shifting away from the fee-for-service model to the values-based reimbursement model. I envision, the way that works is that everyone's going to be paid a lot less initially out the gate, and based off of assessments that insurance companies are going to want, they will then provide additional income for assessments that you send over to them. So
Hmm.
you could potentially make the same amount that you're making, but you won't right off the bat without showing that you're providing assessments value according to them, which sucks because they're going to dictate what value means versus us. And so I think that's going to have a huge effect financially on businesses, especially if you're salary based. I think there is a potential for therapists who are even hourly or commission who have to make that shift when the initial reimbursements are much lower, that it might create this space where staff leave because they obviously only see what's in front of them, and they will likely blame the insurance companies or likely blame the group practices over the insurance companies. But there's things we can do to be proactive, like looking into how you can start to do within your value system some type of assessments or feedback that show that you're asking clients if they feel like they're getting better or doing better or growing or whatever their goal is. And there's things like Blueprint, and I know EHRs are now starting to add assessments to their EHR. So there's ways to do it. I also think insurance companies are likely going to be harder to get in with or panel with in the future because I'm seeing them start to purchase companies like CVS, is owned by Aetna, and now CVS has therapist offices inside there, which means that insurance companies can just direct clients to their own therapists, which means that they're essentially paying themselves versus having to pay out to a private practitioner. That'll be, I think, an interesting thing. And it'll also make it harder for private insurance companies or private practices to get in with insurance companies. And I think we'll see, probably not in the next 5 years, but in the next 10 years, slowly, it getting to this place where people start getting out of insurance to do private pay, and it being an overload of private pay practices who don't have enough clients who want to pay out of pocket. And those practices that will thrive through that or survive through it are ones that have diversified services outside of one-on-one or insurance facing things, even if you're in out-of-pocket, like even if you don't take insurance, if you allow clients to submit claims or use their out-of-network benefits, that's all going to affect them too. But I think, being proactive and looking at how you can service your clients outside of the traditional therapy model could be really helpful in kind of weathering through that. I also think diversifying services in terms of making your practice a wraparound is going to be helpful. So having med management or any other wellness related that kind of helps the whole body in a sense is going to be something that people are looking for. As you can tell, since COVID, I think all of us are wanting the easiest, right? We are okay with most of us are okay with telehealth. I see my own therapist through telehealth. I don't want to drive anymore. Now I'm like, I can just go in. So people are going to want, are more likely to gravitate towards practices that can meet all of their health needs versus going here for one thing and here for another thing. And so anything we can do to make our practices more well-rounded like that is also going to help us kind of weather that. But
yeah. That's helpful.
I'm just going very mildly over.
I know. It's like just touching on those things.
Yeah.
I would tell people though, if you're interested in sort of keeping up with changes and staying on top of those things, because that's what we're going to need to do to survive and thrive in this whatever's coming.
That's the visionary work that you should be doing.
For sure. Yeah. I think they should check out the exchange, honestly, and take advantage of all the resources that you have and that you continually add. Because I think that's probably one of the best ways to stay up with things. Also, your free Facebook group, the Group Practice Exchange, is a wealth of information.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how to wrap this up. I was going to try to ask you one last question, but this is really helpful. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we'll have to do a round 2 sometime to dig into some other things.
I would love to.
Yeah.
Well, it was good to see you again.
You too. Bye.